Welcome to part 4 of my beginners yoga series. I'm really glad that you've made time for your practice today. So in this part we're going to work on balance, and we're going to use a few pieces of equipment. If you've got them available, alternatives will be fine as well if you don't have formal yoga equipment. So if you have them, it is 2 or 1 yoga block, a yoga belt and a chair of any kind as long as it's sturdy. Now if you don't have yoga blocks, something like a piece of wood or a large hardback book or softback book that you can stand on. The important thing is that the whole of the sole of your foot can fit on there, in fact both of your feet side by side, because we're literally just going to stand on top of these in a moment. The belt, if you don't have a belt, is something non-stretchy. Dressing gown belt, a fashion belt would be fine. So the way that we've been doing this series, I've been doing some familiar things each time and something added on. So today we're going to begin with Tadasana, which we've done in every class so far because it's really fundamental, but we've done it in a different way in every class, and again we're going to do it differently. So what we're going to do, before we do it differently, we're going to do it the same. So we're just going to stand in the centre of your mat, spread your feet out if you can. If you struggle to do that, you can encourage that by bending down and doing it with your hands, forgot the word. Join the inner heels if you're able to. Bring the weight onto the back of the heels, but still reach the front of the feet forwards. So we bring the weight back to the heels to align ourselves above the heels where the leg bones go down into the foot essentially, so we are stacked and not leaning forwards. But then we also want to be using the front of the foot, so we're pressing down and out with the ball of the foot as well. Be lifted in the arches, lifted through the legs, lifted up and out through the chest, out to the collarbones. Calm in the ribs so they don't push forwards, and calm in the back, waist and the tailbone. So stay where you are. I will turn sideways. I've shown you this many times and it's really important as you're learning Tadasana. Make sure your tailbone draws down and in. Okay, it's not too much in because you can get into the habit of pushing the hips forwards. We want that straight line, so I'm going to bring my weight back over my heels, but then I'm going to make sure that my tailbone isn't going that way, it's going down and in. It also draws the tummy back, and essentially we're looking for this straight alignment over the heels, but with active feet. Be aware of how you're holding your head. So try to have a jawline that is level with the floor, lifted up the back of the neck, balanced, and a quiet feeling in the face. This is a really good place to start your practice from a psychological point of view as well as physically. Just taking a moment to be quiet and alert, changing gear in our minds from the everyday before yoga mode into our focused yoga state. So you can release that Tadasana now. Now I suggest that you get your chair as well as whatever you decided to stand on. So that's your yoga blocks if you have them. Just place, if you're right-handed, place the chair to your right side. If you're left-handed, place it to the left. Now, I've got 2 blocks and I've got quite small feet, so I'm going to stand on both of them like this. I'm going to have a height of 2 blocks, and I know that my feet just about fit on here. If you have particularly long feet, I've got just over size 4 feet, UK size, then you might want to have your blocks like this, so your heel up here and your toes down there. Essentially, you want to stand on some height, and you need the whole of the sole of your foot to be in contact, because this is just going to become the floor. So place that down. As you can see, I'm putting it near the chair, but not all that near, and stand up onto that height. Arrange your feet exactly the same again, so bring the inner heels together, spread out the feet. Just check, actually because I've come up 2 blocks, it's quite far away, I'm just going to bring my chair. What I want you to check is that you can just get your fingertips to the chair, and this is simply here in case you feel your balance is disturbed, because actually I'm deliberately trying to disturb your balance a little bit. in subtle ways to begin with, and then I'm going to challenge your balance more as we go through the whole session today. And if you feel that you've got the chair there, you can just put your fingertips to, or hold on to more strongly if you feel you need to. Okay, so make sure you can touch it. And then we're going to do Tadasana exactly the same. So we spread the feet, we bring the weight back into the heels, we draw the tailbone down, lift up and draw in with the legs. It's not tension, but it's firmness through the legs, bringing the leg muscles to life, asking them to hold on to the leg bones, exploring what we feel and what we don't feel in the legs, lifting the front of the pelvis so the tummy button just gently draws back into the body, regardless of body shape. This is about where your skeleton is. So the tummy button is the reference point, but it's actually about your pelvis tilting. So lift the front of the pelvis up, quiet in the lower front ribs, lifted in the upper front ribs, sternum and collarbones, broad across those collarbones. Calm, but reaching down in the arms and the shoulders, balanced in the head. So I think every time I've taught Tadasana to you as well, I've probably made a comment about how this looks simple, but it also has a world of possibilities in it. It's so true. You could stay, and if you were disciplined in the mind enough, and if you had an appetite for it, you could stay for a very long time in Tadasana, exploring your bodily sensations, exploring your areas of awareness, areas of lack of awareness. But today, I want you to feel how it's slightly different to do this on a lift. So I am now about 4 inches taller than I would be in my normal world. I'm in a very familiar surrounding, but because I'm just a little bit lifted up, everything looks slightly different. Let's step down off there and do exactly the same again. You won't need your chair because you're on the solid floor. Same again. Tadasana, but in the familiar state. And then one more time, you can do, let's call it lifted Tadasana. There's no official Sanskrit name for this because it is the same pose, but we've done something that introduces slight strangeness to it. And when you go into a slightly strange place, as long as it feels safe, that can open your mind to different ways of seeing what's going on. That's the idea. So lifted Tadasana. Notice what you can feel. How's your body reacting? I can notice that because the blocks are firm, but they do have more give in than the floor, I can feel that softness under my feet, and I can feel that I'm actually waving around slightly more than I would on the floor. And I think some of that is not just the softness of the block, but it's the slight discombobulation of being lifted. And then release. So the second way we're going to change up our Tadasana is we're going to do it on one leg. And the way that we want to do this is to sneak one foot off the floor. So initially we're going to stand on the right leg and lift the left. It doesn't matter which side your chair's on. We're going to stand on the right leg and lift the left. But you want to lift it in such a way that the rest of your body doesn't notice. So we don't do this because all sorts of things changed in my body. So be in your Tadasana, and then almost without moving, I will have to move a tiny bit, but I want to minimize that as much as possible. I want to shift the weight so it feels like all the weight is now on my right foot. So not by leaning, but by pressing through the right foot more in my Tadasana. And then I begin to sneak the left foot off the floor. I'm bringing my knee forwards, I'm rolling forwards, and I'm just going to leave the very tip of my big toe on the floor this time. Just the tip of my big toe. Now as you're stood on one leg, feel free to keep your fingertips on the chair as you like. I'm definitely going to do that because I need to talk to you and focus, and that's a lot for my brain to do. So as you stay, notice the sensations in your body. Can you feel kind of a fluttering in your foot and ankle as moment to moment the muscles work out how to help you balance? bring that foot down to the floor. We're going to do exactly the same, so come back to Tadasana. This time, from the centered feeling, you're going to make the left foot the one that takes all the weight, so push down into the floor with the left foot. Try to sneak the right foot off the floor. So we're trying not to disturb the rest of the body. So we roll the foot up. You may want to adjust exactly where your toe is on the floor. Just leave the tip of the big toe on the floor. Fingers on the chair or off as you like. Even though, as I described on the other side, it's very likely you will feel that fluttering. You may feel bigger wobbles. They may come, they may go. All normal. You can take the hand off the chair if you wish to, but if that makes it very wobbly, I would suggest keep your hand on the chair for now so that you calm that down. And although you're aware of the movement, they're not overwhelming, so you can really focus on some tiny details for a moment. We'll go into more difficult balances where the wobbles will get big, don't worry. Okay, put that foot down. Now for the last thing we're going to do here, simply we're going to actually let the foot leave the floor. Now as we do that on each side, as well as everything else I've already described, which will be present and you want to be aware of it, there's one more thing I want you to notice for today, which is your hips and your pelvis. So your pelvis is here, that's how your legs attach to your body, and often if we lift one leg, that side of the pelvis will lift up. And I've said that we sneak the foot off the floor. And part of what we don't want to disturb is the pelvis. So really try and notice that you're not lifting the pelvis up and equally not pushing it out to the side. So this area particularly, focus on that now. So be in your Tadasana. You can shift the chair to the other side if you want to change, but there's no yoga reason to need to do that with this. So we're going to stand on the right leg and lift the left leg in your own time. Remembering that what I said was that this time, if you're able to, you're going to bring the foot entirely off the floor, not far, and you're going to try and keep the two sides of your pelvis exactly the same as they were before. You can keep the standing leg straight or bent. Obviously, if you're going to keep it straight, you're going to need to lift it forwards ever so slightly. Exactly how you hold that leg is not important for today. So holding firmly with the standing leg, holding firmly in your attention to your pelvis, so keep the tailbone in, that's part of the pelvic region. Keep the front of the pelvis lifting, notice the left and right sides. Put that foot down. And then the last one of these, very slow detailed work I know, but it really helps your brain to understand how to focus into your body in lots of detail. And also it builds a lot of strength in the foot and a lot of control, which is really, really important for general movement in life and for other yoga poses. So we're going to stand in Tadasana and then we're going to lift the right leg off the floor. So for the last time, we move the weight across to the left leg. We lift the right foot off the floor and we notice, where is the pelvis in space? Has it distorted? Has it lifted? Have we stuck the tailbone out? Can we control that better? How is the weight on the sole of the foot that we are standing on? And then bring your foot down and release. So that is your Tadasana, and I don't know about you, but my feet can feel the muscles, all the tiny muscles in my feet can really feel that they've been doing something there. So that pose looks like barely anything, but if you really fully engage into it, there's a lot that you can discover, both strength-wise and also in your yoga awareness practice. Next, you're going to move your chair off your mat just to one side, and you're going to get your belt or equivalent. Now we're going to do a pose that we did in part 3, which is called Supta Padangusthasana number 2. You're more likely to remember it as the one where you lie down and you take your leg to the side. So roll your spine down, get your belt. You don't need a loop in it, so yoga belts have loops in them and we often use them, but that's not necessary for here. Loop the belt around your right foot, around where the arch of the foot is, and then you hold on the inside. So you can see I've got my knee bent, my arm goes past my inner knee and holds near my ankle bone and the arch of my foot. I'm going to straighten the other leg out. Now, if when you did part 3 you realised you couldn't work with this leg straight on the floor at the moment, then keep it bent, that's fine. So straighten it out if you're able to. Make sure that this shoulder that's holding the belt is comfortable. That's not very comfortable, it's very rounded and pulled off the floor, so I could let my hand slide down the belt a little bit so my arm and shoulder have got more space to roll back towards the floor. And then what we're going to do is something we did in part 3, which is to take the knee out to the side. So I'm keeping the heel close to my bottom, as close as is possible for you, and I'm going to rotate my hip out to the side. So keep the ankle and the knee neutral. This is not a twist of the knee or the ankle, but it is a movement of the big long thigh bone into your hip socket. If you didn't know, your thigh bone is the biggest bone in your body. Okay, so let's go to straight, and one more time, take it out to the side. This is yoga, so don't forget to be straightening and extending through the straight leg if you have that leg straight. And then release that, and we will do that on the other side. But I'm just going to shift a little bit because I'm slightly close to that wall, and I won't turn around because you'll get a different angle. So put the belt on your left foot, straighten out the right foot if you're working with a straight leg, keep it bent if you're not. Right hand rests to the side of you. So you can see now my arm goes inside my leg, holds near the arch of my foot. You might be further away, that's fine, but you're going along the same line. Extend out through the straight leg, rotate that hip out to the side. No twist in the knee, no distortion of the ankle. This is about getting the thigh bone and the hip joint to learn how to do this rotation outwards. I'm going through that 2 or 3 times and then releasing it. Now the second time we're going to do this, we're just going to do this 2 times. If you have a yoga brick, you could use that. If you don't have any yoga bricks or blocks, take whatever you were standing on when we started with the Tadasana, and you're just going to snuggle that against your hip. Don't lift or move yourself at all. Snuggle it against your hip. Okay, if you have to lift yourself and put it back down and you feel that as a lump, it's far too close. At this point, it's just against you. Nice and close, but no more than that. Put the belt back onto your right foot. So the block or equivalent is on your right side. You go to exactly where you were before. If you need to, if you feel it's slipped, you can just snuggle it in again. Again, it's going to support me, but it shouldn't be underneath me. I shouldn't have had to move to get that in. It's really important that. So here I am where we were before. I've rotated my knee out to the side, so I've done what we did before. And then I'm going to do what I can to open the back of that knee out, first to a right angle. And if that block is under your hip correctly, you will feel it's supporting you. If it's too close, you'll start feeling it dig in unpleasantly, in which case just reverse a little bit and move that block out. If you can't feel it at all, it's not close enough. If you can do more, you then begin to straighten the leg. Now, you must not straighten the leg if the angle that you take your leg at is any lower than the hip. So don't bother straightening the leg if you end up pointing your foot down there. Okay, it is better for the rotation of the hip. You get a much better action if you keep the knee bent and the thigh pointing up, diagonally up past your head line, if that makes sense, than if you were to straighten the leg just to somehow tick that box, but be pointing your foot down towards the foot end of your mat. And then bring the leg back in. So what this block, take the belt off, what this block has done is it stopped us tipping over. It helps us to do that pose without tipping over. So I am going to turn around this time because my wall will be in the way if I don't. Now lie down, again, I'm not lifting, I'm just snuggling that in. Belt onto the left foot this time, which because I've turned is the one that's still nearest to you. Straighten out the right leg, rotate the thigh bone in its socket, start to unbend the leg, go slowly, keep extending with the straight leg if you're working straight. And then if you can, straightening out that leg, still check that your foot is straight, the knee is not twisted. This is a strong inner thigh stretch. I don't suppose I need to tell you that, you're probably feeling it. Don't forget to extend into both legs, comfortable in the shoulders. So this is called Supta Padangusthasana number 2, which is reclining, hand to big toe pose number 2, because eventually we hold the foot by grabbing hold of the big toe and reclining, because obviously I'm lying down. Okay, so roll onto your side, push yourself up. And that was actually preparation for us to do an adapted version of tree pose. So you'll need your chair again. Grab your chair. Now, we've got our chair. I don't know how high the seat of your chair is. There is a chance this might be a little bit too high, but we'll find out. And if it is a little bit too high, you just need to find something that's slightly lower. So how do you know it's too high, and what are you going to do anyway? So tree pose itself is a pose. I'll just show you the inverted commas full pose. You bring the foot to the midline, the side of your inner thigh, right up at the top, and ideally you push that foot against the leg stays, and then you can raise the hands if you like. So we are a tree, this is a branch going out to the side. There's a lot of things that need to be happening for your body to be able to do that. One of the things is balance, of course, that's what we're about, but it's also about many other parts of your body. So we're just going to start to learn the action by supporting the leg. So stand so that your toes are about in line with the centre of your chair seat. So when I say centre, I mean side to side, middle. So your toes are about in line with the centre, and then bring your foot onto that chair and turn it so it points to the side. What we're going to do now is stand in Tadasana. So basically trying to do Tadasana, but we've got the leg in this strange position. Now the main thing that's going to be challenging here, and what you need to pay attention to about whether this is too high, is whether you can control your tailbone and your bottom from feeling like it's really sticking out behind you. So if you really can't, I'm going to say more about that in a moment, but already you need to get something lower. Now I'm going to show you the second time turned around so you can see exactly what's going on. So again, I'm going to line my toes up with the middle of that chair. I'm going to bring my foot onto the chair, slightly forward, so that if I put my foot back down, my heel would be just in front of my toes. Now what's difficult to control is that this part wants to really push out to you. So my thigh bone, rather than going into my body, is now kind of sticking out in that direction, and my tailbone is sticking out towards you guys. So sometimes that happens because we're simply not aware of it, that we need to adjust it. Sometimes it happens because our body can't adjust it yet, because this leg is too high up, because this is quite a challenge on the hip. So first of all, you try adjusting it through working with awareness. So come into Tadasana with the standing leg, and then draw the tailbone down. If you can feel or imagine where the end of that thigh bone is, rather than letting it stick out, see if you can move it into your body. Don't clench your buttocks as you do that, and try and keep the knee back in line with the ankle. Try not to let it go forwards any more than the ankle. Okay, let us stand the other way. So this is sometimes taught as preparation for an entirely different pose as well, but for today I'm using it as a way of understanding how to control the hips, and particularly the way this thigh bone holds into the hip in when we eventually do tree pose, which will actually be another day. We're going to do adapted tree pose. So you're standing on your first leg, exactly the same as before. Let's see if we can do it again. So Tadasana in your body, straight leg, lift the front of the pelvis like we've learned in Tadasana, draw the navel back, tailbone goes down. Get the sense that the thigh bone is moving into the body, not poking out behind you. If your chin juts forwards, that will tell you something about what's happening as well. If you want to, you can just put your hand on your inner knee, just to make sure it's not coming forwards. I'm not pushing, I'm just reminding myself that's where it needs to go. And then we'll do that for the second time and the last time for today. So turn around the other way, toes in line with the centre line of the chair seat, your lifted foot slightly forwards of that. The reason why we're going slightly forwards is because that is easier and less challenging on the hip. So if you're finding this very easy, you can bring your foot back so that initially it's in line with the toes and then even in line with the arch of the foot. You don't go any further back than the arch of the foot. But if you want to increase the challenge, then you can move the foot more back in line with the side of the body. So Tadasana, draw the tailbone down, tuck the bottom in, particularly feeling the lifted leg side, my left this time, making sure that the inner knee stays back and then release. For our last pose, we're actually going to link two poses together and do a really classic balancing pose. So we're going to do triangle pose, which again we've covered in previous weeks, I think it was part 2, and then we're going to add in half moon pose. You will need something for your hand. It's likely to be less than a chair height, but if all you've got is a chair, then you can use a chair. So the first time we do it, I'm going to show it with a chair, and the second time I'll show it without. Okay? So place your chair towards the end of the mat with maybe just the front legs on the mat, approximately, and stand quite far away. So normally we'd stand in the middle of the mat. This time I'm standing further away. You want the distance between your foot and the chair to be approximately the distance between your hand and your shoulder, or a little bit further. I've got it slightly further. Okay, definitely not nearer, that's the important thing. So wide feet for triangle pose, turn your left foot in, right foot out. If you've done the other parts, that will be familiar to you. Wide arms, straight legs, bring your hand down. Now we haven't got anything for the hand, so we're going to just place it on the leg. Now from triangle pose, I advise you just watch if you've never done this before or if you're less familiar. You bend the back knee, and at the same time, you bend the front knee, my apologies. At the same time you bring the back leg in and you reach out for your support. Okay, so you go here. If you find it hard to keep this hand lifted, rest it on your waist, that's fine. And then the balance comes because I suggest you look at the floor with your face but not your chest, because you lift that back foot off the floor. Now you can see I'm bending my arm a little bit because where I really want to be is there with my torso, with my torso and my lifted leg in a line parallel with the floor. Now you may not be able to go there yet, so here is fine, but just know that you can bend while you're learning and improving to go lower. You can bend the arm that you're touching the floor with. When you touch the floor, you keep it straight, you don't go any lower. So turn your feet to the front and bring your feet together, and then we'll do that on the other side. If you're going to use the chair on the other side, then move it across. Now what you can use instead for your hand is a pile of yoga blocks, probably at least 4 to begin with, or a yoga brick, which is what I have here. This is probably almost half as small as the chair seat, slightly taller than that, but not much. So it is a step, quite a big step ahead, and it really depends whether you've got one. But if you're going to use one, hold the brick in your left hand to do the second side, turn your right foot in, left foot out, arms wide, hand down. Now if you are using the brick, you now have something if you can reach that low, okay? But then what we're going to do is bend the front knee. I'm going to rest my hand. I'm going to bring my back foot in as I reach forwards. I'm going to start to lean my hand on my support, whatever that is, and slowly, I'm going to lift my back leg off the floor. Now if you look at the shape of me, my back leg is straight all the time. My front leg is not straight yet. I'm going to work to straighten it now. If you feel you have to choose which you can straighten, you straighten the leg in the air, always. Whoops, wobble. And then let's come back, bend the standing leg, bring the foot back, if you can, to triangle pose again. Hands up, stand up, arms down, feet to the front, bring your feet together. So you can see it's really difficult to balance and talk. Part of the reason is because when I'm talking, my brain is out there with you. It's not inside me focusing. You will notice that some days are easier to balance than others, and that's really normal. So this time, I'm just going to say the bare minimum, and we're going to do it one more time on each side to finish our practice today. So feet wide, turn your feet to the right, so left foot in, right foot out. Wide arms, hands down for triangle pose. Reach out with that hand if it helps you balance, or rest it. Bend the front knee. You can turn your face to the floor to help your balance, but don't turn your chest to the floor, so keep the chest facing forwards. Back foot in, hand goes forwards. Start to balance, so trust the support that your hands are. Lifted leg is straight. Extending into that leg. Straighten the standing leg if you can. Tuck your bottom in like we did in the last pose with the foot on the chair. Reach your tailbone out towards the foot in the air. Bring your foot down, triangle pose, stand up. As you can see, even someone who has been practicing for a very long time can have a wobbly day, and it looks like the day I decide to film this for you, I'm having a wobbly day. That's okay. We're going to do the second side. There are other ways we can stabilise this. To be honest, doing this completely freestanding is the most challenging. So if you are also feeling like you're having a wobbly day or a wobbly life, don't worry, I can show you in the future other ways that we can learn to be more stable. One of the ways is just practice and familiarity. Clearly that's not what I need today. I need a little bit more focus. So if I was practicing on my own, I would definitely be very quiet and trying to narrow my focus into the pose. Wide hands. Bring yourself down to triangle pose. Rest or reach your hand as you prefer. Bend the front leg. Back foot in. Hand forwards. Lean on your support. Extend out with the standing leg. Extend out with the lifted leg. Straighten the standing leg if you can. Bend the standing leg, bring the foot back to the floor. In triangle pose, arm reaches up and come up, hands down. So you saw there, slightly less talking from me brought me a little bit more stability. So thank you for practicing with me today. We covered quite a lot of ground, but every step builds on the last. If you're feeling ready or interested in doing more of a class scenario where we would do more poses, then there are lots of options like that on my channel. And also in part 3, I gave you some lists of poses that you could link together that we've already covered into a practice. So if you are interested in starting to take more steps into your yoga, then you have those places to go. And I will also be back with part 5 next week. If you would like to support my channel or say thank you for this content, that would be wonderful. Don't feel obliged. It's absolutely fine for you to simply take this if you're not able to afford to pay for the content, no problem at all. But if you would like to say thank you, I have a Ko-fi page and the address for that is on screen now, and you can make a small donation in gratitude for what I give you. I'll see you again next time. Bye for now.